Hey guys, and welcome to episode 8 of CUBED, the Marvel Snap podcast. And as you can see on your left today, we are missing Bok Choy, aka Dakota. He has some life to do today. But I am joined with the always reliable, maybe we'll see in the future, Don, aka DarkHelmit. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. Um, as you can see from that picture, but what Mark means by real life is that that fish bit his lip off, so he needed some time to recover.
Yeah, he can't speak. He's got to talk to us through his teeth right now. All right, so we'll get started because we're gonna keep tonight's episode pretty short. Hopefully, we do like talking, so we might run maybe longer than I say, but we're gonna try and keep it in a tight, 5 hours. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Avengers versus X-Men event. So this is an event that they put on probably a couple days ago, but they haven't said when it's going to end. So the premise of the event, which I do enjoy that they are doing these temporary events, because then it gives us something new to build around besides adding new cards, which they do every week. But we'll get to that later. So the event is if you play 3 Avengers in one lane, you get +3 power for. Is it for each Avenger or is it just for that lane?
I think it's for the lane.
Okay. So you get +3 power to that lane. And then if you play 4 X-Men wherever on the board, they each have one +1 power. So I'm just going to read through the list of the Avengers and the X-Men really quick. So there's a lot of cards, so just bear with me. So the Avengers are Ant-Man, Black Panther, Black Widow, Bucky Barnes, and the Winter Soldier, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, Echo, Falcon, Hawkeye, Hercules, Hulk, Iron Fist, Iron Lad, Iron Man, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Mockingbird, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, Nova, Quake, Quicksilver, Rescue, Scarlet Witch, Shang-Chi, She-Hulk, Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Stature, Thor, Vision, Wasp, and Wong. Now, for the X-Men, you have Angel, Armor, Beast, Bishop, Cable, Cannonball, Colossus, Cyclops, Dazzler, Forge, Gambit, Havoc, Hope Summers, Iceman, Jean Grey, Jubilee, Kitty Pryde, Magic, Mirage, Multiple Man, Namor, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Nightcrawler, Pixie, Polaris, Professor X, Psylocke, Rogue, Storm, Strong Eye, Sunspot, White Queen, Wolfsbane, Wolverine, X-23. So I feel like when just reading those names, I was doing like the Pokemon rap from like 10 years ago. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. All right. So those are a lot of cards. The first thing I see that's kind of weird is when you play Avengers on one lane, you only get +3. But if you play for X-Men wherever you are, each card gets +1. How do you feel about those benefits, and what are the pros and cons on that?
Now, I think that is if you play 3 Avengers, so you could actually do it in multiple lanes.
Oh,
So each lane would get each lane that you play 3 Avengers, then you get 3 power.
yes.
Which in a lot of ways kind of works out the same way as you would with the other one. Um, Honestly, both this event, I've kind of done a lot of thinking about this event and then the love event that we just had, and really these are luxury events for people who are in Infinite, right?
Yeah,
Like
right?
for people who are fighting on the ladder, these events are like, oh great, another thing that I could just lose to. Um, Overall, I mean, basically, what is it? Every hero card that you play basically has um, a and a plus power. Oh, you know what? Hey, did you mention Magneto for the X-Men?
No, so he's actually not on the list, and I guess he's not considered an X-Men in their eyes. Technically he is the X-Men's villain, but he also in some stories he does lead the X-Men. So I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah, I don't know why. You know what?
I don't
So
know. I'm gonna have to write second dinner and just protest this because, like, let's be honest. Like, come on, Magneto, let's do this.
yeah,
Like, this is ridiculous. He's a part of the
especially
X Men.
yes, especially when the new animated series is coming out in 2 days, right? And supposedly
Exactly.
he inherits the X-Men. Oh, it'd be cool if in like 2 days they actually add him on the list. That would be pretty cool. Now, the first thing that I see about these lists is, and the good thing that Marvel Snap did is that, I know we talked about this last time, and I was kind of going on like, oh man, I wish, there was an Avengers theme that, these cards work together and collaboratively. It's a good thing they don't, because in this list, that would make running like an Avengers deck or an X-Men deck pretty overpowered, right? Now, the good thing that Marvel Snap did is you're able to interlace X-Men with Avengers and it works together, right? Just depending on what the card does. So it's good that I don't know if they thought about this ahead of time or it just happened to be like this. It's nice that events like this don't overpower any archetype, because each archetype is very specific on which cards you use. So it's not like an archetype that is run before this event is going to get like a significant boost from this. Now, I have a question for you. I know you are fighting on the ladder right now. Have you given any of this a thought or try and see if any of it would work?
I've messed with it in Conquest a little bit just because, like, anytime there's this new stuff, you definitely want to give it a shot. You want to be like, hey, like, I don't want to be completely left out.
Yeah.
Have I done a lot of it? No.
Okay.
Like, just my general take from it. Um, the X Men seems a little bit more powerful, in my opinion, just because you can kind of spread them around here and there. Um, it's a little bit nicer of a setup versus like I know I have to put three in this lane and I know I have to put three in this lane. And for instance, like the X Men, if you put four of those cards in one lane, guess what? That's actually a bigger boost than three of the other in a different lane. So um, while I have gotten a chance to play with it a bit, I haven't played a lot of it, and I definitely haven't played it on the ladder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? And when I know you mentioned the love event that it was around Valentine's Day that came out. I know with that, somebody created a deck that we did run for a little bit, and it was very successful, wherever you were, Conquest or the ladder. I feel like this one right here is more about just the event, right? It's not really, there's no overpowering archetype that you can build with these cards alone. Whereas a good deck will take from just more than the X-Men, more than the Avengers. It'll combine the two and take some others to support it as well. So I'm glad, in that sense, that this is completely balanced in that sort of way. I mean, it has snuck up on me a couple times where it's just like, where did they get this plus power, And it's just like, oh, right, the event. So
Now, I do think it would be interesting. So, I like this concept of like doing these team cards in some ways. I
yes.
think if you started using it for maybe some underpowered cards, like let's say you did this with Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Mm.
These cards don't see a lot of play. If you could do something similar with something like this, though, I think you might see more play from those type of cards, which might be an interesting way of kind of buffing those cards without overly buffing those cards.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't want it to be like Gamora being able to just jump up, right? But you know what? If all these other are on there, and then you have the Gamora, that kind of would be nice to be able to buff a set of cards.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. What do you think about them adding like that as a secondary effect? Do you think it's nice to just keep temporary, or do you think it's something they're testing because they might want to do it in the future?
I think this is a temporary thing. I don't think this should be one of those nonstop kind of constant thing, because we've already seen, like we've talked about, like stat bloat, right?
Yeah.
We've seen these stats just going up and up and up and up. I don't know if I want to take this and be like, hey, for every different set, and then you start to find, like, for instance, Captain America, right?
Yeah.
Well, Captain America has sat in a couple, right? He
Yeah.
sat in the Love one, and they have this one. So if you do these as more permanent things, does it get two buffs,
Well,
right?
I would think it's just like cuz look, I'll bring it to like Yu-Gi-Oh cuz I know Yu-Gi-Oh. Imagine it's like Exodia, right? You gather all the pieces and if you get but it's different in a way, not like you win right away. Like, oh, if you have Agent 13 and Captain America on the board, he gets +1. And then if you also fulfill there's three other Avengers, then you get another +1. I can see that, but then I could see it very being very complicated, right? And they kind of pride themselves on it's easy to learn. Because if they do add that, then it's like more things. Oh, what other cards are they running in this deck? That there's going to be a mysterious buff on that card, right? That I can't account for. So, and
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I like this as a temporary thing. Like I said, I think it'd be an interesting way of buffing certain cards, but I wouldn't want it permanent on anything.
Okay, I agree, and it's cool that you mentioned the what is it, the Captain America card. Because it was a very good card when it was during the Valentine's Day event. I'm not too sure about this one, but I'm pretty sure it works out decently well. But it's nice to know that they can buff a card temporarily, and it's a good card. Now, why can't you just buff the card for it to be a good card on its own? Why wait for a temporary event? Because Captain America is one of the OGs, and he's I don't think he's being utilized at all.
No, and really that card, like, it is one of those iconic characters that they're just like, meh, it's fine.
Okay. Well, this event is going on. It doesn't say until when, but it does add Cannonball on the list. It doesn't add War Machine on the list. If I let me check it real quick, it doesn't have War Machine in the Avengers list. So I'm guessing it might end before next week. I'm just guessing. So the next thing I want to go into is just this is something I was thinking about over the weekend. I got to talking to somebody about the game, and I love the game. We love the game, right? It's such a different way to play a card game, especially when Second Dinner makes it so you're not. It's not like other card games where you have to keep constantly buying packs for new releases, right? You always have a chance to either get it by unlocking a key, or you could buy it with tokens. Now, when I was explaining this game to somebody that didn't know anything about it, of course I gave them the spiel like, oh yeah, you don't have to spend money to play this game, right? I do, because I love the game. I want to support the game, and it helps me stay competitive. Slightly an edge, right? It gives you a slight edge because you could complete your collection faster. It doesn't make you a better player at all. You still have to learn the ins and outs of the game. But it just, you get on the collection track faster. Now, for people that are ultimately looking into starting this game, how do you feel the collection track is now?
You know, I think the collection track isn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry about that. Um,
Good.
so overall, when you look at the collection, you have those abilities to get through, right? So tier one and tier two are you get free, basically, right?
Yes.
Within the first month or so, you should have most of that done. 3, you get a free one all the time, plus you can pull them still. So that's a nice little boost there. Um, Now, for someone who's just starting the game, like, yes, you can absolutely catch up at some point. I'm guessing if you don't buy at least the season pass, it's going to take a long time to get there. For myself, I've mainly just bought the season pass every uh, season since I started, other than the very first one, and like I've been able to complete my collection minus one card at this point, which
Mm-hmm.
is Martyr, which I'm not going to play anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so ultimately, like, and it took me about a year to finish the collection,
Okay.
and I have a decent amount of like keys to pull more and all that. So I don't feel like I'm any far behind, right? For people who are just going to get in the game and play for free, yeah, you're going to be limited on some of the decks you can build for a while. But if you play for a year and a half, you're going to be right there with most people.
Okay. Now I should have done my research before this, but I don't know how many cards are released at this point. But I feel like the longer you put off playing this game, the harder it's going to be to get competitive at it, because like you said, you're kind of limited to what decks you can make. Now, with them releasing one card every week, sometimes two, that puts us at a minimum of 52 cards a year, right? Mm-hmm. So, in that sense, if you're especially if they're not consistently making cards or pushing cards down the series table, right? Because when they first started, they're like, okay, well, this card is going to stay in Series 5 for this long, and they have the big bads like Thanos, Kang, and who's the other one? High Evolutionary and
Galactus.
No. Is Null also one?
Oh, sorry, I lied. Okay. Null isn't one.
Okay, I was like, he's a 4. Okay, so with them stating, and it's nice that they stated this beforehand, like they're never gonna be released from Series 5, which is nice because then they informed us beforehand. That means either you spend tokens, or you can get them from your keys, right? If they're in a spot like cash. So it's good that they informed us about that. Now, when I first started, which was in the MODOK season, they had a agenda that said, "Oh, okay, if this card is in Series 5, the other cards that are released in Series 5, it will take this long for them to get to Series 4, and then it will take this long for them to stay in Series 4 to push down to Series 3, which Series 3 you could get by, just getting in caches, right? If I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it's still like that. So you had a chance of getting them in caches while you progressed, right? Just playing the game. So that essentially becomes free. And so when now they're like, oh, we don't know when we're going to push down cards that are Series 5 to Series 4 and Series 4 to Series 3, right? So that means, okay, well, people need to either gather resources, save resources to get one card every week, or you have to spend money to get those resources, right? Because it's kind of hard to get resources in this game where the in-game currency, it doesn't really reward you for opening, not like too much, right? So I know somebody did a study, well, not studies because it's just them, right? But they're just like, okay, what's the what is it? If you're Series 3 complete, how many caches would it take to get 6,000 tokens? And the average was about, I think it was like 200 something caches. Now, once you're series 3 complete, that means, you get every 5 levels is credits, or is it 4 levels, or is it 5?
I think it depends.
I think okay. So for us right now, let's see. I'm just gonna check this real quick. So every 4 is a either credits, boosters, or a reserve. So that means every 12 is a reserve, right? A reserve or a key. So doing some math, I'm just gonna pull out my calculator real quick. If it's every 12,
math.
if it's like every 12 that you're getting a cash, I'm not even gonna count the keys, right? So 12 times about, let's say 250, because I think it was upwards of 250. That means you have to gain 3,000 in your collection level to get enough tokens for one card. So that's quite a bit, because right now I'm at 13,000 in my collection level. So, and this is not indicative of, my personal experience, because like I said, I spend money, right? But if that's any case on how much, you get, I would only have been able to afford 4 cards with this kind of collection system that they're doing. How do you feel about that?
I agree, but the thing is everything changed while we were still playing the game, right?
Yes.
So some of that might have gone quicker, some of that might have gone slower, because the whole system changed. Now, to me, it does seem like they need to tier this out a little bit better for incoming players to make it a little easier for them to not necessarily catch up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to take away the grinding that people who've completed their collection have done, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to just hand it to people.
I
But
agree.
at the same time, you definitely want people to be able to come in and be a little bit more competitive, especially at the lower levels, right?
Mhm.
Like, where once they get to Infinite, now they're facing everyone else with whatever deck they had, right? And you're just like, okay, I don't have, let's say, Loki, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, well, that whole deck style is gone,
Yeah.
right? Or if you're missing other key cards, try and playing bounce without, let's see, what's another, Hit Monkey, right?
Yeah.
It's just, there are cards there that make those decks so much worse.
So
yeah, they definitely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish your thought, and then I'll ask you a question.
No, they definitely need to find a way to help people boost up a little bit, but also not invalidate the work that some of us have put in.
I agree. Now, what is the perfect scenario for you? Like, you coming in as a new player, how long do you think it should take you to complete up to series 3? Like, what's that good amount of time that you have to put in the grind for? And this is free to play, okay? So there's a lot of good series 3 cards and essential cards that you can take to make your deck competitive. Yes, series 4 and series 5, it's gonna be tougher to get, but how do you feel? How much time should somebody put in to be series 3 complete, free to play?
I think anywhere from 6 months. Like 6 months, a little over.
Okay.
Right? Like, I think if you put in 6 months, you can finish tier 3 completely. Because, like, 6 seasons seems like a long time.
Yeah.
But it really isn't, right?
It goes by so fast.
Like, maybe 4 to 7 months, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, I think that would allow people. Like, there's good decks. You could build basically a good destruction deck. I mean, you'd have to get lucky to get null, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, I think everything else is tier 3, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing.
Minus like Nico, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. But not essential.
Exactly. It's interchangeable. And I think that's the thing that's kind of hard about this game, very like just starting off, is you kind of have to know what archetype you like to play, because then you could start, aiming for those cards. For, oh, I want to finish, say, destruction, right? Oh, I want to finish a destruction deck before I start going for other decks to complete. Because if you go for a deck that you don't enjoy, then you're just like, you're always going to be wanting, right? It's like, oh, well, I want to play this, I want to play that. So it has to be, you have to be very mentally strong to be like, oh, okay, I want to stick to this, do this really well, and then, put in your time, and I'll be able to play other things later. Now, I'm not too sure which
It's true, but you're also sitting right around other people who are just like you, right?
Yeah.
So while you can't put together the perfect deck there, most of the people you're playing can't either. So like it's not like you're in a spot where you're like, hey, I have half of the deck that I want to play, and I'm playing against, Lambie, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm playing against, ggMarcLee, right? Like these top tier players out there, right? You're not playing against them. You're playing against, um, friends of ours.
Yeah, exactly. Like people close to your collection level, which I totally agree. But you did bring up like, hey, if they did well and they reach infinite, right? So that was another thing I was gonna delve in like really quick. But yeah, say if they reach infinite, then you, like you said, they are playing people with, maybe more complete collection than they have. Because some people could be just very good at card games, good at reading, board situations and locations and whatnot, do very well, get infinite their first season, because it is easier to get infinite your first season because of your collection level, right? Because you're up until 100, you're playing against people with your collection level. Then once you're at infinite, bam, you're playing against like, well, someone near your tier or your skill level. So
I mean,
go ahead.
that's 100% true. But you also have that flip side of like, there is no benefit to playing it, right?
Yeah.
Like once you get to infinite, it's basically bragging rights at that point, right?
Pretty much.
So if you could beat someone with a crap deck, that should still be major bragging rights, right? Like literally, we all have had that deck where we've been like, why are they playing? This doesn't make sense. And like, how did I lose to that?
Yes.
It's the inner shame, right? Yeah, they're not going to be, top 1,000, right? Or top 5,000.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, being top 5,000 doesn't actually mean anything.
You get nothing but bragging rights.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and so just to kind of like put a seal on this, I feel like it's going to be tough for people to start off the game. Like you mentioned before, if they change the way that they do the collection and how you obtain it, or just be more open to like the people that are going to start the game, right? Because we're kind of used to second dinner, fumbling, announcements, right? But I feel like if you're when they are open about like stuff they do, people are more appreciative because we like that communication as a community. Now, when it's a card game that you're releasing 1 to 2 cards every week, it's good to know that, hey, this collection, you're going to be able to, if you play consistently, do well, you should be able to complete your collection in, not complete, but like series 3 complete, because you're never going to finish a collection because you're going to always keep buying a card, right? Or not buying a card. You're going to have to always unlock a card, whether it being from the season pass or, the weekly cards they release. Now, with that being said, let's move on. Do you want to add anything else to that before we move on?
Yes and no. I mean, like, how long have we been playing the game? We've been playing the game a little over a year, right?
Yes.
Like, I would say. And for someone who basically has spent $10 a month from the start to being one card short of complete, Like, and that's before they kind of accelerated the tier 3 track, right?
Yes.
I don't feel too bad about being able to move it. Like, since then, they've actually accelerated that whole process to make it a little bit quicker to get there, right? Um, I think, someone plays a year-ish, right? You're right. It's 52, which is actually more like 64 because now they're adding an extra card in that first week.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have the pass, then that's 12 extra cards. But 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 like it still feels like you can get there, right?
Yes.
And you just have to be more strategic on how you use your keys. Because like, let's be honest, a lot of the key cards, especially recently, aren't like game changing cards.
No.
They're fun, they're nice to have, but they're not like Loki when it came out, where you're just like, I have to have that card to compete.
Yeah, it defines an archetype, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's a good point that you make because it is kind of hard to sell the game when you're just like, well, you know, your friend wants to start. It's like, well, when do I get to play against like people of your caliber? Like, put in your time, right? If you put in your time, you'll grind it out. Now, like I said, the only way you can do that automatically. I mean, they even say it in their ads, right? You can't spend money to get better, but you can spend money to quicken the process, right? Because more cards equals more strategies equals more things you can do. So
But as far as games go, I mean, name a game that, unless you're going to spend a lot of money in, you can actually get to this place in a year, right?
yeah.
Like, we've all played mobile games before, right?
Hmm.
Um, I've played a mobile game for a year and been nowhere near even competitive, right? Today, I could be competitive. I'm not
Hmm.
very good at the game, but I could be competitive.
I think we're all pretty good at the game, and that's the thing. Like, um, it's a very easy game to pick up, and you know, I've been reading like Reddit threads, and how people um don't reach infinite, and I get that. It is tough because it's a skill you have to learn. It's not because, like I said, in our previous episodes, a good deck is 50-50. If you're winning 50% of the time and losing 50% of the time, it's a pretty good deck. So that just means you have to maximize your wins and minimize your losses. So that kind of that skill right there to learn how to do that was very tough at the very beginning because you're just like, oh, I just want to, I want to see what they play. Sometimes you're like, you don't need to see what they play because you're probably going to lose. And
Yep.
it's having that restraint, teaching yourself that restraint, just like, okay, yes, they probably have an awesome play that they can do. That's why they snapped. And I'm just going to get out of here, and, put it out of my mind that I lost that one. On to the next one. Uh, so
Yeah.
with that being said, I wanted to go into the card of the week last week. So the card of the week last week was Mockingbird. Now, how are you liking this card?
I think it's a very niche card, right? So, I mean, it kind of fits into 3 decks, give or take. Um, I think it's better in certain decks than others. I like the Thanos deck. It fits in there. It works really well to get a cheap card, right?
Yep.
Um, in, let's see, Moon Girl decks, I've seen it. And that's okay, not great. It works in uh, Loki decks, which again, not great. It's kind of just if for some reason you get a certain card, boom, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure it's a full on tier 5 card,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I think it's a very niche card. Um, that's my overall feeling about it. Like, I like it. It's fun to throw to Thanos, but everything else seems kind of shoving it into the deck, right? Or yeah.
Yeah, so like if a card has any type of tokens that they can play like a Sinister or Squirrel Girl or what is it Mysterio, and there's one more, Brood. You know, so a lot of those decks, it's nice just to be like, oh look, there's an extra card that you could play, which is it could easily be a 1/9, 2/9, 3/9, which up to 3/9, that's like almost max value, right? Because at 4, you have better cards that that you could play where it's just like Sentry. They do have downsides, don't get me wrong, but even out of 4/9, I would still play it. If I didn't have a better card. Now, I feel it fits easier into Thanos because I know what a lot of the content creators were saying was you're just playing Thanos. Like you don't have to do anything extra to get this card out. You're already playing the stones. You're not making a decision like, should I play the stone or should I play this? Like, no, you want to play the stone because that gives you the effects, that gives you the draw, right? So you're already gonna play it. So kind of like the Brood deck. Like, not all the time do you get Brood, but if you get Brood, you're kind of playing the Brood anyways. So this would Mockingbird would benefit off of it. Now, how do you feel about the like the sustainability of this card? Like, do you think it's gonna receive a nerf or at all or something like that?
I'm not sure it's going to receive that much a nerf just because we're sitting here in the same it's fitting into one deck, right? And the thing about like the Thanos deck, right? There's so many cards that you could be putting into a Thanos deck that it's hard to be like, hey, I'm gonna take this one over that one or that one
Mm-hmm.
over this one, and like playing this one versus let's say Scar, right? It's what do you keep him, what do you get out, right?
Yeah.
Do you have this card or do you have Cold Obsidian, right? I mean, yes, you can have all those in, but then you're starting to eliminate other cards out, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like I don't see it needing a nerf anytime soon. Like it hasn't won a crazy amount of games for me
Mm-hmm.
personally. Um, it's been nice. It's fun. It's a nice little extra thing, but it's not one of those make or break cards.
Okay. Um, I kind of feel like if it does get a nerf, because you can't buff this card. This card is way too good in Thanos itself because I play a lot of Thanos, so I am trying to get a good split in Thanos. That's why. But it's such a good card in itself. Like if you play 5 of the stones, you get it a 0/9 for free, right? So I feel like if they do nerf the card, it's going to either go up in cost to a 6 or it's going to go down in power to an 8. Because I feel like those in itself would maybe 7, because eight is still kind of good. Imagine getting a free vision instead of like moving it. You could just play it wherever you want. So I think that in that way it might get nerfed, but I feel like right now it's just a fun card that it kind of keeps you on your toes, right? Like if somebody's playing tokens, you're just like, okay, their Mockingbird can be this, their Mockingbird can be, this cost or whatever. So it's another thing to put in your head, and it's nice that they add cards that keep us on our toes because sometimes you don't want that autonomy in playing the cards where it's just like, okay, they're going to play this, they're going to play that, and we know what that deck list is. Now, with Thanos, you might have the same deck list, but it always plays out differently, right? Because of what stones you get at what time. That's what I like about the deck itself. It's very versatile. Now, with this card being I don't want to say it's a Thanos card because I think they kind of made it to be a Agents of Shield card, right? So I feel like if they could, I don't know, change it in a way where it could be utilized in more archetypes, I think it'd be a really great card. And not saying it's not a great card already.
Yeah, it's like I said, it fits really well into that deck. I don't see it getting nerfed anytime soon. Like I said, I don't see it as like a meta breaking card. Like we've seen other cards that really have thrown the meta into like disarray, like when Legion came out, right?
Yeah.
Like it was one of those cards that like, hey, it's a 5 cost card. It just kind of set everything. It changed the way we play the game,
Yeah.
right? Um, not so much recently, but like when it came out, it changed the way the
Oh
game was played.
heck yeah! Like people were playing Storm Legion like almost every other game.
Yep. So like this card doesn't do that, right? So I don't see it actually hitting a big nerf anytime soon. I mean, because really in the Thanos deck, we were still pulling power. Like, and what's the biggest problem with the Thanos deck, right? Okay, making sure that you have space to play your big cards as you get towards the end, right? So management of those things is really important in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. You get 6 stones and you only have 12 places you can play. So that takes up half your board, right? So that means you have to learn, and on top of that, you could get what is the one that gives you squirrels?
Legion?
No, the one that gives you squirrels in your locations. I think it's like New York or wherever, like Central Park. Oh, Central Park. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. On top of that, you could end up with like Central Park or getting that negative ninja, or getting, well, a good thing is if you get the monster. But you have those locations that can screw up your whole plan in playing Thanos because it just takes up board space, or only 1, 2, or you can't play 1, 2, and 3 costs here, which always sucks. But yeah, I feel like them releasing this card and making Thanos another month of Thanos, I like it. Not a lot of people like it, right? Because it is right now one of the top decks again. And I don't mind that because, like I said, I play it. But I could see how people can be like, oh, it's kind of redundant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next week's card is Cannonball. So I'm going to go ahead and read it for us here, and then we can go ahead and talk about it. Oh, let me go. There you go. Okay. So this card is going to be a 5 cost, 8 power card, and the effect is an on reveal effect. So you could move the highest power enemy card here away. So if you can't, destroy it with it's kind of worded weird. It says destroy it with a rock, but it's destroy it and replace it with a rock, if I'm not mistaken, right, Don?
Yeah, that's my understanding of this card, is that it's destroy that card and replace it with a rock.
Yeah. So the highest power card moving, I wonder if. Okay, yeah. So it does move randomly. So it's not set in stone on where it's going to move. So it's a very. Let me get your first thoughts about this card.
So my first thoughts about this is this card is there to destroy the blob.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be an interesting card. I think it's going to kind of change some of the Kingpin deck. That's kind of where I see it fitting into, is like you have a Kingpin deck where you start moving cards around. So you take like Polaris, you take Kingpin, you take Craven, right? You start filling up that Kingpin lane. Turn 5 or 6, you play this card into a lane you know they're going to go big, and you know you're going to destroy their big card, right? Like I see Spider-Man, I see like just trying to control all their cards into one lane and hope that it was going to go that way and pop it, right?
That's an interesting thing. Now, the only thing I see with it is, I don't know. It's a 5 cost, 8 power, right? So if we run down what we have as a 5 cost, 8 power, the first thing that comes to mind is Vision. Let me actually look it up real quick. So
MODOK.
Okay, so we have MODOK, 5 cost.
5 and higher?
Well, just 5 cost, 8 power. So like what it has to compete with.
Jane Foster.
Jane Foster, and the last one is Spider Woman. Now, going with those effects, Vision, you could move it. MODOK, it's mainly for discard. Jane Foster, mainly want to play it with, what is it? Thor and Beta Ray Bill. Spider Woman is probably the other only card besides Vision that is a kind of like an all-around card where it just, minuses all enemy card power by 1. Now, I feel like it's another card that can be splashable, but it's a very interesting tech card, right? Because it's kind of a Shang-Chi for just the highest power card in that lane.
Yeah, I think I see that. Like, I think this isn't going to be, again, this feels much more like a 4 card, right? Like,
Yeah.
the fact that they made it a 5 feels kind of forced. It feels like they're trying a little bit too hard to be like, hey, spend your tokens over here, right? Or spend your keys. Like, this card doesn't feel like it's going to fit into, I mean, yeah, it's a tech card, but what 5 costs are you going to replace in a lot of decks, right?
Yeah.
I see this being effective. Like, well, we're talking about Thanos, right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest problem? Hey, they fill lanes. Well, if it has nowhere to go, either it fills a lane that you didn't want it to, or it destroys the card, right? So there's good and bad, and you also don't have to use it against like some high card, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you have just a Dracula sitting in a lane by itself, right? I can move that Dracula out, right? If I didn't get my my Magneto,
Apocalypse.
or it also is nice because it just pushes it out of that lane, and you're like, okay, if they double power into one lane, right? Who cares?
Yeah, I that's why I do like your idea of filling the opponent's lane already. That way, when you're ready to play Cannonball, it's just moving to the other lane, which it's probably probably going to win them that lane, but you're going to end up winning the lane that you play Cannonball in. So,
Yeah.
or destroying that card if the other 2 lanes are filled.
Like I said, I see it being interesting. I don't see it being a top tier card.
I think it'll be a top tech card, but not in the likes of like Shang-Chi or whatnot, right? Because Shang-Chi, it's very clear, like, oh man, if there's 10 power, try and stay below 10 power, right? But I feel like if this stays at 5 costs, then it's going to see less play than Shang-Chi because Shang-Chi is just more reliable.
And more, you could reduce the cost on it so much better.
Oh, yeah, with Zabu. So anything else that you wanna add on this before we end?
No. I mean, look forward to getting Bok Choy back next week, hopefully. Yep. I know that it's always good when we're all here. Now, obviously, this is the shortest podcast we've ever done in our life. Man, what can we do to expend this out? Nah, just kidding. It's been fun. Like I said, I look forward to us all getting back together. I look forward to just continuing to move this forward and getting to talk more about these cards. And I look forward to making it to Infinite this week because that's my goal.
All right. Yes, let's do it. Now, before we do end, I want to get your thing. How many keys do you think it's going to take you to get Cannonball?
Okay, so my streak ended last week. It took me 3 keys to get Mockingbird.
Mockingbird, yes.
What that escaped me. I'm going to go with 2 keys this week.
All right. I'm going to go with 2 as well because I did get lucky and pull first key last week. So let's hope our luck stays short. Is it? Yeah, I don't know. Let's hope we get lucky. So, all right, guys. So until next time, we will see you in the next episode of Cubed.